What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a great day. Now, in today's first entitled parent story, an entitled mum demands that a fisherman give her entitled kid a fishing rod, the fish he's just caught, and every other piece of equipment he owns. Why? I don't really know, but let's get straight into that story. Give my son all your fishing gear and the fish you caught. This story happened about 2 years ago. I've always enjoyed fishing and frequently fished at a river a short ride away from my house. There was also a park at the spot I fished, so there were usually some kids running around, though they tended to stay away from the spot I fished from. There were actually a lot of snakes there. I've been bitten quite a few times. Now, today was a pretty slow day and I hadn't caught anything in the 2 hours I was there. So this kid, about 8 or 9, comes over and asks what I'm doing. After I explain I'm fishing, he takes a huge interest in it and starts talking up a storm with me about it. Now, I'm always happy to talk about fishing, and the kid did seem pretty hyped and said he was going to ask his parents to get him a rod. So, up until this point, I was having a good time. But then the kid's entitled mum comes into the scene. She walked over with her younger kid, who was only about 4. The kid I was talking to threw a somewhat worried glance at her, but continued to talk to me. It was then that the other kid spoke up. He started asking his mum what me and his brother, I didn't know that but I did soon after, were doing. I explained to him that I was fishing and that his brother was very interested in it. The nice kid told his mum how it was really fun and that he himself wanted to start fishing. His younger brother, the entitled kid of the story, then said he also wanted to fish and started begging his mum to take him to the store to get fishing stuff. The entitled mum then looked at me and told me to give my rod and my gear to her kids. Now, at this point, I had read a few stories from r/entitled parents, but it's one of those things you assume is never going to happen to you. So I was just speechless for a second. The entitled mum then goes on about how buying rods for them would be expensive and that since I probably have more, that I can just give them my rod. Now, to be fair, I do own several other rods, but she's right about good rods being expensive, and I'm not just handing out my fishing gear to random people who demand it. So I politely told the entitled mum that I can't just give away my rod, and that it's too big for her kid anyway. I tell her that she can buy some rods that are quite cheap at quite a few stores, but she then proceeds to start yelling at me for calling her kid small and demands that I hand over not only my rod, but also my other lures and gear. I stood my ground and harshly refused, because at this point, I was getting annoyed with this woman. But then, finally, a fish took my line and I quickly turned my attention to that. It was a bass, and to those of you who don't know, bass are a fun catch due to the hard fighting they put up. This one was pretty big and was jumping out of the water, attempting to split my hook. But after a few minutes, I brought it in and began trying to unhook it. I had forgotten about the entitled mum and her entitled kid at this point. But when I turned around, I found the youngest kid going through my tackle box and the entitled mum holding my bait. She then told me to hand over the fish since I could just catch more and more, and that her sons needed to be able to tell their friends they caught that fish. I then told her 2 things. 1, I was a catch and release person, and 2, to kindly shove off, with much harsher words being used for the second one than I care to post here. I then grab my bait from her and order her entitled kid to get away from my tackle box. She gets this enraged look on her face, but seeing my much more enraged look, she chooses flight over fight. She took both her entitled kid and the nice kid and left. I didn't see her for the rest of the day, and I honestly thought that was the end of it. But the next day, I came back with my friend Harry to do some more fishing. The entitled mum, her entitled kid, and her nice kid were also there. And this time, the nice dad was there with brand new fishing rods. But the moment the entitled mum spotted me, she comes over and starts yelling at us, claiming that we were the reason her sons weren't catching anything. Now, I hadn't told my mate Harry about this, so he started to explain how you don't always catch stuff, but I just cut them both off by telling her to F off. At that point, her husband, the nice dad, comes over, and I admit I was a little worried this guy was going to be like his wife. But turns out he was a chill guy and takes our side. His wife, the entitled mum, tried to stay and continued to accuse us of completely random things I don't even remember. The dad, though, comes back with the nice kid a few minutes later and they both apologize for the entitled mum's behavior. After that, she didn't bother us, though the dad and the kid fished with us for the rest of the day. I think the younger, entitled kid didn't actually like fishing after not catching anything on his first day. To any aspiring anglers, don't let this dissuade you, because we never saw him or the entitled mum after that. But the nice dad and the nice kid still kept coming and fishing together, so I guess it's a happy ending, with the entitled mum getting spited by us and a father and son finding a great family activity in fishing. Well, there you go. I guess in the end this story did have a positive ending, but it's a pretty roundabout way of deciding whether or not you like fishing. I mean, at least in the end, you know, a happy father and son can now go and enjoy a new activity, and you, OP, and Harry, you've got some new mates to fish with, and that's a whole positive thing. But it's a bit of a weird way for the entitled mum and the entitled kid to find out that they don't really have the patience for fishing and just interrupt people who were enjoying the activity, you know, from the beginning. I mean, personally, I don't really think that I've got the patience for fishing. I don't really think I'd go and spend a whole day fishing, and I'd probably get quite annoyed, to be fair, without catching anything. There's definitely no way I'd catch anything. I don't have the skill for that at all, and I'd probably just, you know, give up after a couple of hours. Maybe not, I don't know. I haven't really tried it, to be honest. Maybe I should, but I don't think I would go to like a river or like, you know, a fishing site and then disrupt every fisher around me that was catching stuff and say, you know what, no, I need that fish because I need to show off that I've actually caught something, even though I don't have the ability to do so myself, truly. So give it to me, and also give me a line and your rod whilst you're at it, because I want to come here again. I really, really do. I don't think I'd do that, that's for sure. Now moving on to our next post. I did what? Storytime Karen edition. Hello there, my fellow entitled parents enjoyer, and welcome to my post. I've been lurking around here, reading stories, and I've thought, dang, wouldn't it be really cool to meet a Karen in the wild? Boy, was I wrong. So strap in and here we go. So there I was, a beautiful day that I was spending inside when I went to get something to eat. I realized I didn't actually have any food to eat, so I went to my local mall to buy some food for my home, as you do. So I arrive at the mall and decide I would go to the food court, then the supermarket. So I went to the food court, had some tacos, they were bomb. But as I ordered the most delicious food on earth, I bumped into a little girl, about 8 to 10 years old. I said sorry, like a good person, but I noticed that she'd been running around the food court earlier, like she was looking for something. So I asked her if she was lost, and she said that she couldn't find her mum. I thought to myself, I could leave the line to help her look for her mum, or I could keep being in line and just buy me and the girl some food. So I asked her if she was hungry, she said yes, and I bought her some nachos that we ate. Then I told her, let's ask the security guard to help us. She accepted, and I started to see that she was more happy when we arrived at the security guard tent/shop thing, and I told the guard everything that had happened. He went on the intercom and asked for Karen, the kid's mum, to come to the tent/shop. The kid told him the name of her mum. Now she did quickly come to the tent, but when she arrived, she seemed annoyed, and the following conversation happened. There you are, child. Come on, you've been gone for so long. For context, I freaking hate seeing people dominate others with an iron fist. I speak up at this point. Now, I know that it's not any of my business. If it's not, then don't say it. It's just that I think that is no way to treat a child. Don't tell me how to treat my child. She leaves. At this point, the security guard sees me red with anger and says, let it go. There's no use arguing with people that have less than one brain cell. Fine. It's just I hate to see people who dominate with an iron fist. I hate it too, but I can't do anything or I'll get fired. At this point, I realized that even though I ate delicious tacos, I still needed to eat something tomorrow. So I said to the security guard, look, I need to go to the supermarket, but thanks for the help. No problem. So I went to the supermarket. Now I was looking for the milk for that calcium when I hear a loud hey coming from behind me. So I turn around and see the Karen. There you are. I've been looking for you for 5 hours. 5 hours? I was in the mall for a total of 3. Sorry, Mom, but why were you looking for me? Because you embarrassed me and my little brat. Yes, she did actually call her own daughter a brat. Mom, could you lower your tone when talking? I don't need to smell your last week's casserole. What did you say? At this point, everyone that was in the produce section was looking, and I noticed that her daughter was crying at this. She looked horrified. Mom, you're scaring your daughter. Can you please calm down? So, you want to give me attitude, huh? Then she tried to swing a slap at me while saying, respect your elders. but she was so slow that me, with my reflexes of a heavily sedated sloth, could just step back and avoid it. At this point, this is getting physical, and she decides that it's best to go back to words. So she yelled again, "Shut up!" Now I lost my cool. "What the heck do you think you're doing?" My dad has a really deep yelling voice, and I got that in my genetics. So just imagine a 5'10", 17-year-old with the yell of a bear. "I'm done with your rubbish. Get away from me." Then I realized that I was also scaring the daughter too, so I stopped yelling. "Don't yell at me, brat, and because you embarrass me in front of everyone, again, you will pay." At this point, she tries to steal my wallet. I've got no idea why, but she does try and steal it, and she does sadly take it. "Hey, give my wallet back." Now the Karen has decided that now that she has my wallet, she's won, and she stops yelling. "You owe me for the embarrassment, so this is my wallet now." But because she has an IQ of 1, she forgot that everyone in the produce section saw what happened, and security was obviously called. When they arrived, they see a 17-year-old arguing with a middle-aged woman about his wallet. They separated us and questioned us about what happened, and I told them what I just told you, and because I've got like 10 witnesses, I obviously win, and they asked me if I want to press charges. Now, I was gonna say no, but I remembered that girl, and I did not want her to be with that monster of a parent, so I said yes. I mean, maybe it's just me, but to be honest, I didn't think this mum was actually that bad. Yeah, she seemed a little bit strict and was probably a little bit too harsh on her kid, but she had just lost her kid for a long time, it seemed like, at the start of this story. So she was probably very worried, and her emotions were probably quite, heightened, because obviously she'd lost her kid, had no idea where it was. So when you obviously go and find your kid, you're probably going to be quite relieved, right? And you're going to be like, don't do that again. So I don't mind her getting a little bit angry then with her kid, because I'd probably do the same, to be honest. I don't really think that was that out of the ordinary or that bad to parent like that. The stuff later in the story, fair enough, I can kind of understand at that point why you might think this woman is a little bit weird. Stealing your wallet on the one hand, that seems pretty illegal to me. So yeah, whilst I don't really think that she was that bad at the start, I totally get how the later events in the story probably, show that she is very, very entitled and very, very strange. Let's just say that. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/entitled parents. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, please go down, drop a like on this video to let me know you did. Comment down below your thoughts on these two stories. And finally, watch more of my content right there with this handy little playlist full of my entitled parent stories. If you're new to the channel, that's the best thing to watch, as well as hitting this button as well and subscribing for my daily videos so you never miss any of them. All right then, see you tomorrow with the brand new one.